Are we starting back? We'll be here after, but it's true.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we're going to be continuing.
Okay.
Now we're going to the part of the agenda. Okay, please, we're continuing our meeting. People, if you would like to talk about it, you can go out in the hallway or you can listen to trustee comments. Okay.
Excuse me, if you could please proceed to the atrium. If you do not wish to stay for the rest of the meeting, the board has quite a bit of business to get through. So please proceed to the atrium if you would like to discuss things further. We're going to move on the agenda.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Trustee comments. Lexi, do you have any comments?
Excuse me, if you could please proceed to the atrium if you wish to talk. We need to proceed with our board meeting. Thank you.
Okay, well. Okay. Moving on.
Moving on.
Lexi?
Yeah, I know the room has cleared. Are you going to close that door?
Could you please close the door, Steve?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Just go ahead.
So, okay. Vicki, I appreciate you for clarifying a lot, making all those points. I know that the crowd has dispersed, but everything that was said, we listened to every comment. We've received emails, phone calls, and all of it impacts and touches us as well. We live in the community. We love the community. And no matter what the change is to that property, it does impact the community at large and us. And so this was something that weighed heavily on our hearts as well. I heard in the comments, I heard frustration, I heard anger, I heard mistrust, and I understand that. I can reiterate what Vicki stated in that what we knew, and when we were brought into this conversation and given this information, and because it impacts our community, we do want to be thought partners and have a seat at the table to have conversation about how we can mitigate that impact to this community. Any changes with the property. So just again, thank you, Vicki, for the comments, and I do appreciate everyone that came out to share a conversation about something that's very difficult. I understand the anger and the frustration, and I can only reiterate what our role is. I also heard about our power, and we don't have the power to impose our will, even for something that we really love and care about on that property. So, Dee, that's really all that I had.
Okay, thank you. I agree with everything. Vicki did a good job of stating what our authority is and what our authority isn't. In this situation, we really have no authority. The property is not for sale. People are encouraging us to buy it, but you can't buy something that is not for sale. Coney, I did listen to Jonathan Martin's comments on the WVXU yesterday. In fact, I listened to it twice. He made it clear that the pool area, they need that area to accomplish what they need to do. Is there a need for another concert venue? That's not our, maybe not. That's not for us to decide either. So I just want to reiterate one thing that Vicki said. We get zero revenue from Riverbend. It's property taxes, as she said. It's a nonprofit. We don't get money from that. Do our area restaurants get an increase in economic benefit because more residents or people coming to the concerts go eat in our restaurants? Yeah, they probably do. Do our students and teachers get summer jobs at Riverbend? Sure, they probably do. I know they do. My boys worked there for years. However, the main thing for me is the brunt of any inconvenience from this new thing, new extra traffic and the noise, that will be borne by Anderson Township residents. I promise that we, as a township, will do all we can to work with the CSO and the city of Cincinnati to minimize the impact. My hope is that the CSO and MEMI and the city will work with us to be generous neighbors so that we can get some amenities or revenue that will directly benefit the residents of Anderson Township. We want to make sure we can get something for our residents, whatever it is. We're looking at those ways to make sure we get something that will benefit us directly. So that's all my comments on that. I did want to point out an event that's right up there. April 11th here at the Anderson Center will be an event called Becoming a Community of Hope. It's put on by the Anderson Mental Health Collaborative. It's here in this, I think it's in this room. It's about postvention. It's after a suicide in your community that, you know, it affects the whole community. It's not just, you know, the school district or whatever. We're partnering with the school district on that. So it's the township and the school district and the Anderson Mental Health Collaborative. So I hope you'll all be there. All those people who just left, I wish they would be there. So anyway, that's going to be April 11th at 6 p.m. in this room. So, and that's all my announcements.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay. Moving on, Brian.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say that I have been serving as the fiscal officer for the last 6 months for the remainder of our prior fiscal officer's term. I'd like to thank Ken again for his 28 years of service to the township. And I want to thank Ken and the trustees, administration, the fiscal office employees for making the transition to me pretty smooth. So I'm happy to be here and part of the team.
We're happy to have you.
Thanks again to the voters, and a special thanks to my family who showed up today for the swearing in, even though
They're usually not this exciting. Really, they're way boring.
I guess my daughter had to go to a school function, so she cut out. So I have some old business. Last meeting, I mentioned that our financials were, our 12/31/23 financials were being finalized, so they've been sent to the Auditor of State's office. You have the financial reports at 5A. You'll notice that the general fund revenues are a little ahead of last year. Some of the funds are a little bit behind. Overall, we're about the same as last year at this point. On 5B, it's the resolution for authorizing payments. We had some of these last month. So we're kind of doing an overhaul or a review of our expenditure process, and so these included in 5B are ones that the board itself needs to approve.
Okay.
So
Thank you. I move to adopt the resolution authorizing payments.
Second.
Mrs. Lawson,
Yes.
Mrs. Stone,
Yes.
and then at 5C we have some minutes from prior meeting minutes. We have November the 16th, we have December 7th, and January 18th. The February 5th, we're going to move to the next meeting so that Mr. Girth and I can vote on those.
Sounds good. I move to adopt the meeting minutes from November 16th, 2023, December 7th, 2023, January 18th, 2024, as presented by the fiscal officer.
Second.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
That is all I have.
Okay, thank
Thank
you. Margaret, Law Director, do you have anything?
I have no report.
Okay, thank you. Finance, Tammy.
Hi.
The board has before them a motion to consider a $300 contribution to American Legion Post 318. The funds will be used to offset the cost of Memorial Day ceremonies honoring veterans. So,
Thank you, Tammy. I move to authorize a Memorial Day contribution of $300 to American Legion Anderson Post 318 for the purpose of properly observing Memorial Day with the township as presented by the Ohio Revised Code, Section 307.66.
Second.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, fire and rescue. Rick?
Good evening.
Hi.
I've got 3 things tonight. I'll try and make them as brief as possible. Some of them do take some explanation. First thing on my list is to talk a little bit about what we have termed smoke detector or CO detector blitzes. So in order to explain the blitzes, there's how we get the CO detectors and smoke detectors and how we distribute them. So I'm going to talk about how we get them. So how we get them is FEMA has a fire prevention grant. It's a 2-year grant. The cap is $25,000 for 2 years. So we applied for the grant in 2023. We received it, and we received the money, so we're allowed to spend $12,500 total in 23 and $12,524. Now, we have matching grants. We have matching funds for this grant. So really, out of the $12,500, we have to put in 5%. So $11,875 comes from FEMA. Anderson Township pays $625 each year, and this is a new thing for us, so we're kind of dipping our toe into this. But last year in 23, we didn't get the funds till the end of the year. So we were able to buy 365 combination smoke CO detectors, and the township cost, or Anderson Township, paid $1.71 per detector. So for the 365, we're going to do the exact same thing next year. I'll probably be here next month asking for the funds to get those. So that's how we get the detectors. So how do we had to come up with a new process getting them out. There's really 3 ways that we do that. The easy way is that if we go to a response, residential response, and we notice that somebody doesn't have a detector, or there've been I've been on some runs right here, the beep, you know, and so we know what that is when we talk to the resident. We give them one of these detectors. The other way we do it is through this blitz. So what we did is, for our first time, we took a small area of the township. It was North Burney, Nittrim, Grant, and Foster, a little bit of Salem there. And during the week, and the weekend before, we went around, and this, I shouldn't say we, this is Bob Hurlinger and the Life Safety Division that's really heading this up. They went around and put little flyers on all the doors that said, we're going to be back next Saturday between this time and this time. You know, we're here to check your detectors. If you need one, let us know. So they went out that Saturday, and that's one of the reasons we really couldn't use the 23 funds until 24, because I think we bought the detectors. We can get them to, I think, November. Not really conducive to door to door. So this was the first one this year. We went around and we gave out through that process, we gave out 38 detectors. And it's to no cost to the residents. So what we do is we go in and we just don't give it to them. We mount them, because if we're afraid if you give it to somebody, it'll sit in the kitchen table or wherever it may be. So we mount them where they're supposed to be. We give them one for each floor. So if they get a 2-story house, they get one in the basement, one on the first floor, one on the top floor. So and that's not often that we have 3 floors, but even then it's $5 to the township cost. And I can tell you, over my 40 years here, the times that we've had deaths and fires, you can almost always correlate that with at least one or more non-working smoke detectors that we find after the fact.
Rick, when you say 38, did you give out to 38 different households or 38 actual detectors? Okay.
And that also includes, we got some calls back from individuals that said, hey, I wasn't home or you missed me. So we went out and we gave people those detectors that way. The other way we give them out is information like this, and unfortunately, everybody else couldn't be here. I was wanting to jump up maybe and throw this in.
I know, I bet.
But this isn't something we do just during blitzes. If somebody has an issue with a detector in their house, we will come look at it. We'll come look at location. We'll come look at the age. Because not only, we got the newer ones, which are co-detectors, but detectors after 10 years should be discarded. So usually they have built-in batteries, not all of them, but the ones that have the built-in batteries, they're no good after 10 years. So if we find a detector that's in the right spot, but it's 10 years old, we take it down, we put up a new one. Let's see. We plan on doing about 6 to 10 blitzes. We've given away about 50 detectors, 38 were through this, and when people call, and it seems like we get some elderly individuals that call and say, it's beeping, I don't know what to do about it, so we go. Or our units will go, or they will tell us when we're there on a run, something like that. So that's the system. We hope to get this out. We really don't want to. We've had in the past, we've given out detectors where the township bought them all, and we had some people showing up to try and get 5 and 6 detectors. And then, but when they take them, there's no guarantee, are they ending up in Anderson, and are they ending up on the ceilings where they should be? This way we can make sure they go where they're supposed to go.
I like this new policy of going around or this new protocol or whatever.
Our next blitz will probably be in the village of Newtown, because Newtown is included in this with the township, and we will spot check. We're trying to do generally older homes because newer homes usually come with the detectors already in them. That's not to say if somebody has a problem in a brand new home not to call us, but typically that's not a detector issue. And just a little bit of detectors, you want to keep it 10 feet away from cooking services. You don't want it right outside the bathroom. And you want one, if you're only going to, it's good to have one in each bedroom, but if you don't do that, like when we give it for the one floor, we put it in the hallway outside of all the bedrooms. And our detectors don't do this, but you can get detectors. The best thing to do is have detectors that communicate. You don't have to have hardwired systems. You can buy detectors, they're a combination. There's about 12 two-post where you go A-B with like about 10 buttons to make sure you're not communicating with the neighbors and things like that. But when they're all aligned, and this is the kind I have in my house, I have one in the basement, one on the first floor, one upstairs, and if one in the basement goes off, my one upstairs also tells me. So those are really the best.
That's nice.
We couldn't get it with those types with this grant, but that is the best kind. But for anybody that's listening or watching this, if you're in a township or you're in the village, you have a problem with the detectors, give us a call.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you so much, and for the grant.
So the second item I have is a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a clinical field preceptorship agreement with the city of Cincinnati. So as the board knows, we have hired some EMTs, and we have 2 EMTs that were just at the end of their 1-year probation that had prior history at other departments. We thought they were ready to go to paramedic school. So Cincinnati is starting the first year they've done it. They're doing their own in-house paramedic program. So that started in mid-January. So
This past January.
This past January.
Wow.
Yeah, just a month and a half ago. So what this agreement is that the first couple months in paramedic school, you're learning anatomy, physiology. They are starting to get to the point where they're going to do some clinical work. The clinical work is with us. We act as a preceptor, or some of our individuals do. Some individuals at the Cincinnati Fire Department will act as preceptors, and they will have to do clinical time. You have to do so much time in a hospital facility, and the vast majority, fortunately for this group, is Cincinnati Fire has an agreement with the University of Cincinnati. You spend a weekend there and you see a lot, and that is the best facility for them to go. So what this preceptor agreement does is it lays out what the city has to do and what we have to do. They have to provide qualified preceptors. We have to provide individuals that we know their background, that we assure them they've been HIPAA trained, that we will give them our own preceptor time, because once they learn how to start an IV, for example, they have to do it in the hospital where a doctor that is a preceptor for the program sees it. They have to do it where a preceptor for Cincinnati sees it, but their true clinical time is with our people. That's who they're going to spend the most time with. So this lays out who can be these preceptors. The other thing it does is it sets out one person with the city of Cincinnati, who's their EMS division chief, and one person with Anderson, who is our EMS division chief, who are the point people, and any communication has to go through those two people. This class is a first time for Cincinnati, so everybody's trying to feel their way through it, and this really just put hard and fast terms on our obligations and benefits and the city's obligation and benefits relative to precepting these two students. And there's a resolution for your consideration to allow Ms. Earhart execute it with the approval of Ms. Cumming.
Thank you so much. So I move to adopt the resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a clinical field preceptorship agreement with the city of Cincinnati.
Second.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
So the last thing I have is, once again, another list of equipment that is obsolete or unfit for the fire department's use or for any other department's use in the township that we put on auction. These are things that, like I said, they either broken, they're wetsuits that leak, bikes that don't work, treadmills that are broken, just things like that. So there's a resolution for your consideration to put the list that is part of the resolution on our GovDeals auction site. And as a reminder, we don't pay anything for these items to be auctioned. The bidder pays a premium above and beyond what their bid is. That gets paid to the auction site, and then the auction site conveys our proceeds to the fiscal office.
Okay, great. Thank you. I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the sale of surplus equipment pursuant to Section 50510 of the revised code, providing for sale of personal property via internet auction.
Second.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
That's all for the fire department.
Thank you.
A lot of good
Okay,
stuff.
planning and zoning, nothing. Public Works, nothing. Okay, thank you. Vicki.
Yes, Mr. Severs has items A through G.
Good evening from the other side of the room. It's an honor to start the first of half of the letters of the alphabet with you here.
Thank you.
More than half, I'm sorry, 14
good.
letters.
You
I
got a
don't
lot.
remember we've been to N before, but here goes. So first off, we have announcement of a public hearing. We will have two public hearings, one on April 3rd at 10 a.m. and one on April 11th at the beginning of the board meeting at 3:30 p.m. Those will be for the purpose of community development block grant application that we're planning to file. That is for the remediation of blight and slum properties in the township. So I just want to make that announcement publicly. It is on our website. We posted it to Facebook yesterday afternoon. It's posted, and we look forward to additional input on that at the next board meeting. Item B and C are related to potential sidewalk projects. We've had proposals before the board that you've seen before. One is for preliminary engineering for a sidewalk on Forest Road from Merritt Grove Lane to Meadowland Drive. This is part of the Anderson Trails Plan. It was the highest ranked project coming out of the Trails Plan, and there's a motion in your packet for your consideration this evening to start that work.
Thank you. I move to authorize the Township Administrator to enter into contract with CT Consultants following review by the Law Director for preliminary engineering of a new sidewalk along a portion of Forest Road, utilizing 1994 TIF funds in the 2024 budget in an amount not to exceed $16,000, including a 10% contingency of $1,600.
Second.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Thank you very much. The second item we have is for exactly the same process, but for Sutton Road. This is another project that came out of our 2023 Anderson Trails Plan. This would be on Sutton from Salem to ideally Orchard Lane, which actually comes out in the city of Cincinnati, but if nothing else, to the city of Cincinnati boundary, in the hope that we can make that final connection in the city limits. And pleased that we're having a good working relationship with the city there and hope to continue that. So appreciate your consideration of the motion that is in your packet.
Okay, thank you. I move to authorize the township administrator to enter into contract with TEC Engineering following review by the law director for preliminary engineering of a new sidewalk along a portion of Forest Road using 1994.
Wait, Sutton.
Wait, Sutton. This
Sutton
is-
Road.
Sutton.
Oh, my
Yep,
apologies.
Sutton Road, sorry. Sutton Road utilizing 1994 TIF funds in the 2024 budget in an amount not to exceed $14,950, including a 10% contingency of $1,495.
Second.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Thank you. My apologies for the error there.
that's okay.
No, it's
Next, I have two resolutions for the board's consideration. This pertains to the Ayers Road improvements east of Asbury Road. They involve the acquisition of temporary and/or permanent easements. The first of which is from Coldstream Country Club on the north side of Ayers Road to facilitate the widening of Ayers Road and the improvements that we're being proceeded with later this year.
Thank you. I move to adopt the resolution authorizing easement agreement with Coldstream Country Club, granting easements to the township pursuant to the authority of Section 505.10 of the revised code.
Second.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Thank you. The second of which, item F, is the same action. This pertains to, E, pertains to the property on the south side of Ayers Road. This is with Coldstream Estates Development, LLC, for temporary and two permanent stormwater easements.
I move to adopt a resolution authorize easement agreement with Coldstream Estates Development LLC granting easements to the township pursuant to the authority of Section 505.10 of the revised code.
Second.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
And while we are in the easement mode, I have a completely different project. This is one related to property the township owns, otherwise known as Native Roots, at Clough and Hunley Road, as part of a zoning application for property behind there, which is being leased by our tenant from an adjoining property owner. There's a requirement through the Board of Zoning Appeals to allow for cross-access easement. So the resolution before you, item 12F, would accept that cross-access easement from Ralph Blackwelder, who is the landlord of the adjacent property.
Thank you. I move to adopt the resolution authorizing cross-access easement agreement with Ralph L. Blackwelder, granting cross-access easement to the township pursuant to the authority of Section 505.10 of the revised code.
Second.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Finally, as I shift over to Ms. Earhart, we have a membership resolution for your consideration or a motion. I actually just want to pause and thank the board just for their continued support of staff and for the Ohio River corridor. This board and folks that have left this room won't see that and probably fully appreciate it, and we know the emotions that are being felt by them right now, but this board has had a longstanding commitment to that corridor, to the Ohio River, to the Ohio River Trail, and so many wonderful things that are happening down there. This is difficult, and as a person that's had 4 generations of Coney and a resident of this township, I feel all those emotions as well. But we provided a forum tonight, and you all allowed them to speak. And that's not been done by a lot of groups, and I hope that was appreciated in the remarks that you all made. I hope they'll take the time to look at those, both those that were heard by Ms. Earhart and both you, Ms. Stone, and you, Ms. Lawson. So this motion actually is for our participation, our continued participation in the Ohio River Way.
I move to authorize renewal of the township's membership in the Ohio River Way, Inc. for 2024 at the annual rate of $2,500.
Second.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Earhart, you can have the next 7 items.
All right. I'll wrap it up here. The next item we have for the board's consideration is approval of the permanent 2024 budget. The way the state of Ohio works as far as our budgeting, the board reviews and approves a preliminary budget mid-year, the year before the budget kicks in. So last June, the board approved a preliminary budget, and the reason it is not finalized until March is because that gives us an opportunity. Our budget runs calendar year January 1 through December 31st. That gives us an opportunity to look at things, fuel, electricity, other bills that come in, to make sure that we're budgeting appropriately. The permanent budget last year was just over $66 million. This year for 2024, our permanent budget request is just over $63 million. The reason for the change is we don't have as many capital projects coming out of our TIF fund as we did last year. We do have increases in our fire and rescue fund that are related to the additional staffing that the board had authorized, 6 additional firefighter EMTs or paramedics. Those are individuals who are serving primarily our increasing number of responses for our elderly population. We had a record number of 6,399 responses last year, and this helps to provide service to that very vulnerable portion of our community, which has increased significantly over the last several years. So there's an increase there. We have anticipated an increase in the cost for our contract with the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, although the Sheriff's Office has not yet finalized its negotiations with the police union, so we don't have a final number on that, but we anticipated what that cost may be. We do have a slight increase also in our Public Works Department, and that is largely due to the fact that we have some new procedures in place, some mechanics that are in place, and frankly, we had tools from the 1950s, so we've upgraded some of our tools and equipment back there. We do have a slight decrease in our general fund. That is due to the fact that we're not doing as many transfers into other funds this year, but we do have an increase in expenses in the general fund related to things like additional phones for security purposes and some senior center budget increases, for example. The $63 million budget that we're proposing includes $63 million includes over $18 million in essentially pass-through monies. The Hamilton County Auditor forwards the TIF dollars to Anderson Township, then we reimburse or we pay the school district for those dollars. So it passes through the township before going to the Forest Hill School District, Cincinnati Public Schools, and also Great Oaks Joint Vocational. So the school district disbursements are about $18 million, which brings our actual budget down to $44,904. So there is a budget that is proposed before you. I would request that you consider that and approve that. I would like to thank all of our staff. Everyone has had input into this budget. Everyone has looked at it over and over and over again and have made reductions where possible and been very thoughtful in what they're requesting. So I would like to thank all of our staff for their participation in this, and we present it for the board's consideration.
Thank you so much, Vicki. I move to adopt the resolution approving the 2024 permanent budget.
Second.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes. Will this budget be put on our website?
Yes, I have
Okay.
left it blank for the resolution
Okay.
number, so I can plug that in, and it is under, I believe, the fiscal office. I'm not sure if it's fiscal or finance department. We are still in the process of updating our finance department since it's a new department as far as our website. But we do have our budgets. I think Mr. Severs is pulling that up right now. So it not only has our preliminary summary, but it will have our permanent summary budget on there as well.
Well, it's very thorough, and it's nicely laid out, so people can go on the website and look at it. So thank you very much for everybody's work on this.
Thank you.
The next item we have, annually, we receive a request for stormwater district level of service fees for the coming year. This is essentially what Hamilton County Stormwater District fulfills mandated stormwater compliance services in conjunction with the Ohio EPA regulations. The county fulfills this service for us, and the board in turn has the option to, which we obviously do, is pass along this charge from Hamilton County Stormwater to our property owners. It is based on $15.14 per year per single-family unit. There is a motion before you for your consideration.
Thank you. I move that the Township Administrator be and is hereby authorized to execute on behalf of this board the stormwater district level of service options and service fees for 2025 with the Hamilton County Stormwater District in substantially the form before this board with such changes thereto as shall not, in her judgment, after consultation with the law director, be detrimental to the township, such determination being evidenced by her execution of said agreement. This board further requests that the Hamilton County Stormwater District use a portion of these fees to investigate methods to minimize the impacts of stormwater quantity.
Second.
Mrs. Lawson?
Sorry.
Yes.
Mrs.
fine.
Stone?
Yes.
And I need to back up one because
looking ahead.
Excuse me,
Oh,
I
I'm
overlooked
sorry.
one. Just want to announce that every year the Board of Township Trustees holds a planning meeting. And last year we moved to a day-and-a-half planning meeting where we hold a full-day planning meeting in May and a half-day planning meeting in the fall. This is when the board dedicates a full day of their time and staff to sit down and talk about ideas and programs and potential projects and work through them in a very in-depth manner. The 2024 May planning meeting will be held on May 2nd. It will be held at Highwood Lodge down at Withrow Nature Preserve, which we've been able to, with the graciousness of Great Parks, we pay about $99 to utilize that facility, but it gives us an opportunity to all gather and have some in-depth discussion that is open to the public. Next item is a resolution that would approve a policy regarding animal entry into township buildings. This is something we have not officially had in the past. The resolution would authorize this policy, which is in compliance with the federal Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA. It defines service animals, allows service animals entry into all township facilities, and it specifies exactly what a service animal is. It does not allow emotional support animals into the facilities because those animals technically have not been trained. They do not meet ADA regulations. So because in Anderson Center in particular, we have a lot of folks during the summer that take advantage of our South Plaza, which, by the way, will be turned into a third place here sometime this year with different amenities as far as seating and umbrellas and different structures for people. A lot of people walk, they bring their dogs into this building. So what we're going to do is to make accommodations. We're going to have a doggy parking area outside so that people that want to come in and use the restroom facilities to get a drink of water can do that while their dog is safely tied up outside. So we will be working on signage should the board adopt this policy.
Thank you, Vicki. I move to adopt the resolution approving and adopting the Anderson Township policy regarding animal entry into township buildings.
Second.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Okay, keeping on the theme with dogs. The Board of Trustees back in 1991, not this board, but a prior board, had adopted a barking dog resolution. We do get quite a few complaints from folks that their neighbors have their dogs out too long or their dogs are barking and it creates a disturbance. So what we have done is our law director, Ms. Comey, has updated our control of dog resolutions, which not only address barking dogs, it addresses dogs that may be menacing in some fashion or nuisance dogs, and that resolution is before you. We would ask for your consideration this evening.
I move to adopt a resolution for the control of dogs in Anderson Township.
Second.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
The last thing we have this evening is a resolution that would extend an agreement that we have, a rental agreement with Lock Lord. They have offices in our lower level, and this agreement would extend their rental for another year.
Thank you. I move to adopt the resolution authorizing the execution of Amendment Number 3 to Anderson Center Rental Agreement pursuant to Section 505.11 of the Revised Code.
Second.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Thank you. We do not have any items arising from exec session.
Thank you.
Hallelujah. Okay, that's it. Thank you for all of you that hung in there. Our next regular meeting will be a different time, April 11th, 2024 at 3 p.m. That'll be executive session, so the actual public portion of the meeting will start at 3:30. So in this room, is that, what day of the week is that? Does anybody-
Still Thursday.
Is it a Thursday?
Thursday?
Oh, it's still a Thursday? Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's April 11th. It's not the third Thursday. So, and with that, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all. Thank you,
And thank you,
staff,
everyone.
for it's a long